So we'll just review very quickly. Let us say that the question of who absorbs the deterioration of the carcass, whether it's absorbed by, that means the deterioration from the time of the damage until Hamada Bedin, whether it's absorbed by the mazik, in this case Sheli, or whether it's absorbed by the nizik, Ruvain Palak. Let's say it's a machloikis tanoim, taking the pasuk that talks about im tarif yutarif, if a shomer sacher was guarding an animal, a paid watchman, im tarif yutarif, if it was torn up by another animal by an accident, yuvi'ayu'aid, he should bring a witness that it was an accident. The shomer sacher is parted from an accident. So Yavi Edim Shenitra for Ba'inus, he should bring witnesses that the animal was torn asunder by a unavoidable accident or parted. Abishalaimer, no, it means Yavi Edim means Yavi Aduda LeBezdin. He should bring the corpse to Bezdin immediately to be evaluated. My lab, Bava Kama Daf, the Marasav of Pras Nevela Denizik, that the deterioration has to be absorbed by Ruvain, so there's no immediacy to bring the corpse to Bezdin. While Umar Savav, the Mazikavi, no, it has to be absorbed by Sheli, so you should bring it immediately to Bezdin, because if there's any deterioration, it has to be absorbed by Sheli. Says Malay, the Kuli Alma Denizik, everybody holds that it has to be absorbed by Ruvain. Sheli, the mazik, is not required to pay for the deterioration. But here's a different question. It falls into Sheli's bar. Who is responsible to get the tow truck to bring it out of the bar? V'hacha b'toyrich nevela kamifli. V'tanya, we indeed learned about this. Acherim oimrim, others say, minayin shal bala bar lahalo shar mibai, right? How do we know it's the responsibility of Sheli to heist up? What is that, heist or haste? Heist up, lift up for those that, what? Hoist, that's correct. Hoisted, it probably is hoist.
Heist is like a bank robbery.
The bank robbery, yeah, we're not talking about that. The hoist up, I thought it sounded funny. It's to get the tow truck to bring the nevela up from the bar. But Tanya, we actually learned an opinion about this. Right? How do we know that it's the responsibility of the owner of the pit to hoist up Ruvain's shar from his pit? Talmud Leimer kesef yoshiv leba'alav v'hameis. So, there's no commas in the Torah for a reason. Really, the pasuk is read, Kesef Yashav L'Balav, he returns the money, V'amesi Alai, and the corpse is his. However, we darshan Kesef Yashav L'Balav, that Sheli has to return the money, V'hameis, and he has to also return to Ruvain his corpse, so he's the one that has to bring it out. Amalei Abaye L'Rava, Hai Torich Nevela Hekidami. What's the situation over here? If a shar that's in a deep pit, you could only, if a corpse that's in a pit is worth a zuz, vaguda, and if it's raised to the bank of the pit, shavya arba, so obviously Sheli is going to want to raise it. Because if not, he's going to have to pay Ruvain more, because he has to pay Ruvain the difference between what it was worth when it was alive and what it's worth now. So if it's worth less in the pit and it's worth more on top of the pit, so of course he's going to want to raise it. Otherwise, he's going to have to pay the difference anyway. Ki torak b'denafshei torak. He's troubling for his own purposes. Amalei, so he says, no, that's not the way economics work. For people that need the dog meat, In a bar, it's worth a zuz. V'aguda nami shav yazuzah. And on the bank of the bar, it's also worth a zuz. So it says, Gemara, that doesn't make sense. Umi ikekai gavna, is there such a thing? I mean, if you got to raise it out of the bar, says Gemara, there is such a thing. Damri inche kshura b'masa bezuzah, a beam that's needed for construction is worth in the city azuz, and kshura b'debra bezuzah, and a kshura that's out in the field is also worth azuz. In other words, they don't factor in transportation into the value. Amar Shmuel, ein shamin loy leganev v'loy legazlan. We don't make an evaluation for a ganiv or a gazlan. Rather, if somebody steals something, stealing is where he stole it in stealth. Gazlan is where he robbed it outright. Right? So in such a case, if the animal dies while it was by the thief or the robber or the thief, he has to keep the animal and return a live one to Ruvain. So Ein Shaman, we don't evaluate the value of the carcass and say that you only have to pay the difference. Only for one who does damage. Vani Omer, and I say also af l'shoyam, that if somebody borrows something and it dies by him, now we know a shoyel is chayiv even by oins for oinsin, so the din is that way also. Af l'shoyel shaman. So va'abba moideli. Excuse me, af l'shoyel, and that's deliberately. I mean, it's not deliberately, but it's very ambiguous. What do you mean af l'shoyel? Af l'shoyel what? That the shoyel is like the nizakin, or that the shoyel is like the ganav and the gazel. So the Gemara says, and the Abba Moideli. Shmuel says, and Abba, that's Abba. Very few people called Rav Abba. Rav's proper name was Abba Aricha. So, but Shmuel, who was his contemporary, called him Abba, the Abba Moideli. So the Gemara says, what does it mean, Af l'shoyel? Ibayelu. Haki kama Af l'shoyel shaman, that a shoyel is like the nizakin, that if it dies by him, he could return to the lender the corpse and he pays the difference. And va'abba moideli, and Rav agrees with me. Oidel mahachi kamer. Va'ani aimer af l'shoyel ein shaman. That a shoyel also is like the ganav and the gazlan, that he has to return a live animal. Va'abba moideli, and Rav agrees with me. So the Gemara says, well, we'll prove it. Tashma. I made a bracha already. Excuse me. Tashma. Dahu gavra the shoel narga mechavre. What happened is, let's pick somebody. Mark borrowed an axe from Rabbi Kranz. Tabra. It broke. So also the Kamei Rav, he came before Rav. Amalei zil shlimlei nar gamalya. Go give him a new axe. So we don't say he gives him the broken axe so that Rabbi Kranz could use it as firewood, and he pays the difference. No, he has to give him a new axe. So that's like the Mandiyama that says that it's like a ganav and a gazlan. Shma mina ein shaman. So the Gemara says, Adarabba, mida amrulei Rav Kahana v'Ravasi l'Rav. Since Rav Kahana Ravasi said to Rav, Dina hachi? Is it the din that Mark has to give a new axe, a new axe? Vishasik, and Rav was silent and didn't protest. Shmamina, that he agrees, yeah, you know what? He doesn't have to give him a new axe. He could give him the old one, the broken one back and just pay the difference. So Shmamina Shaman Itmar. So Amar Ula, Amar Rabbi Lazar. So now Ula and Rabbi Lazar say halachas. Ula and Rabbi Lazar, they argue even on a ganav and a gazlan. They even argue with a shaman leganav and a gazlan. They say that if the robber, if it dies by the robber could fulfill the Eishivas and Gzela, give the dead body back and just pay the difference. Rapapi Amar ain't shaman. No. The din of Eishivas and Gzela is you have to return a new animal. V'hilchasa ein shaman loy leganav v'loy legazlan. Somebody steals in stealth, or somebody robs outright. Even if the animal dies by him, he has the trouble with the corpse, and he has to return a new animal. Aval shoyel shaman, but by a shoyel you could return the corpse that died by you and pay the difference. And that's why Mark could return the broken axe and just pay the difference. To the Rav Kahana and Rav Asi, like Rav Kahana and Rav Asi. Now, I believe we're going to learn now 7 more teachings. You know, this is the derech of Shas, that when we have this kind of a rear team, Rav Ula in the name of Rabbi Lazar, so we're going to quote an assorted amount of teachings of Ula in the name of Rabbi Lazar. So here we're going to get a potpourri of halachas. V'amar Ula amar Rabbi Lazar, shilya sheyatsa miksasa b'yom rishon. Here you have a woman gives birth to an afterbirth which comes out of the uterus partially on the first day. Umiksasa b'yom sheni. And then the rest of it came out on the second day. Now here's the question, when does she start counting her Yemei Tumah V'Tar? And since over here, let's say for argument's sakes, we find out that it was a boy. So by a boy, there's 7 days of Tumah and 33 days of Tar. The question is, where do we start counting the days from? Do we start counting it from the first day, or do we start counting it from the second day? So Monin La Min Arishan, we start counting our Yemei Tumah from the first day. Amalei Rava, so Rava says, not so simple. Ma datoch l'chumra, that we're going l'chumra by counting it from the first day, but that means we start the Yemei Tara a day earlier. Because then we start the Yemei Tara from the 8th day after the first day. If we start counting from the second day, then the Yemei Tara is only on the 9th day from the first day. So my datach l'chumra, chumra dasi l'dei kulu. Why the kamataris l'marishan? Because we say that the Yemei Tara starts on the 8th day from the first day, not from the 9th day from the second day. Rava, rather, Rava says, Lochosh Chayshes. We start counting Tumah from the first day. Mimna loy mimanya, but we don't calculate the Yemei Tara Ela l'sheni from the second day. Now, here, what's at stake over here is as follows. There's a halacha. Obviously, if the shilya, if the afterbirth comes out, and there's the majority of the fetus is not in the afterbirth, then it's not considered born. Now, there is a halacha, ein shilya b'loy vlad. There's no presence of an afterbirth without some fetus in it. So then it's only a suffix, is it part of the fetus or the majority of the fetus? That's only one suffix. If it's only one suffix, so it's Tumah D'Oraisa, so it's suffix Tumah D'Oraisa. If, however, there could be a shilya beloy vlad, if there could be a part of the shilya without a vlad, then it would be a svek sveka. First of all, maybe it doesn't have a vlad at all. And even if it has a vlad, maybe it's not the majority. Then we wouldn't say that it's tummy on the first day. So the Gemara says, "My kamash malon." What's the chiddush over here? The ein mixer shilya beloy vlad, that there's no part of the shilya without some evidence of a fetus. That we learned already. Tanina shilya sheyatsa some miksasa. If by here we're talking about a behema, where the fetus came out before before you shechted the animal, shilya sheyatsa miksasa asura ba'achila. It's asa to be eaten. Now, why is it asa to be eaten? Because the din is if the fetus came out before you shechted the animal, then it's not permitted with the shechita of the animal. So we say that this animal, the fetus inside, is forbidden to be eaten because siman vlad be'isha, it's a sign, it's an evidence of fetus by a woman, and siman vlad be'behema. So the Gemara says, well, ima masnisan, if it would be that Mishnah, havamina, I might think the yesh mixes shilya beloy vlad, that really there could be a portion of the fetus without, there could be a portion of the afterbirth without a fetus. And the only reason why we say that afterbirth is forbidden is because ugzeira miktsasa atakula. Because we would say, if we allow you to eat it when part of it came out, we might allow you to eat it even if all of it came out before you did the shechita. So Kamash Malan, no, that's not the reason. Rather, the reason is because ain't shilya below vlad. There's no shilya without a vlad. So therefore, in the case of the pregnant woman, it's only one suffix, and it's not a svek svek. V'amar ula amar Rebbe Lazar. We're already on Daf Yud Aleph from a base. That's pretty amazing. I should tell you now that the plan for tonight, which is it's a bold one, but the plan for tonight is that after the shir we're going to do right away a chok. We're going to start Yisro day 1. I already did the Mishnah Yomis because of that, so the Mishnah Yomis is on TorahAnytime.com on YouTube. Those that get it by digital already got that as well. V'amarula Amar Rebbe Lazar Bechar shenitrif b'soich lamed yaim. A bechar that was mauled by a bear. Chmana litzlan. Bechar was killed. A firstborn baby was killed layaleinu during 30 days. It didn't make it to 30 days. Ein payden oisai. There's no mitzvah pidyon haben, because the mitzvah pidyon haben is only when it's 30 days old. V'chein tani rami bar chama mitoich shenema podoi sifte. It says a lashon of podoi sifte, which is a double lashon. Yachal afilu nitrif b'seich lamed yaim. I might think even if it was killed during 30 days, there's still a mitzvah for the father to redeem it. Talmud Leimer, ach cholak. Ach is an ach padei sifte. Ach is a miyat, that if it doesn't live till 30 days, there's no mitzvah pidyon haben. V'amar ula amar Rebbe Lazar, behema gasa niknes b'mashicha. A behema gasa, large livestock, like a cow, is acquired by pulling it. That means that if the animal is in the Rishus Rabbim, and you pull it into your rishus, or you pull it into a simta, into a side street, by either pulling it or calling it to you or hitting it with a stick and causing it to come to you, you acquire it. It says, we learned that a behema gasa is acquired simply by handing over the reins from the owner to the buyer. Says he says like the following Tana, the Tanya, the Chachamim, Zuba Meshicha, both small livestock and large livestock is acquired by calling to it and it comes to you, or hitting it and it comes to you. Reb Shimon Aimer Zuba Agva, both are acquired by lifting it, as the Gemara says elsewhere in Kedushin. Agva kaina b'chol makam. Amarula Amar Rabbi Lazar. Here again, another dictum of Ula in the name of Rabbi Lazar. Ha'achin shecholku, brothers that divide the estate. And till now, they were, using the clothing from the estate's wardrobe. So when they calculate a fair division, Masha Aleihen Shaman, what they're wearing, they include in the assessment. Umasha al b'neihem u'b'neiseihem, but what their small sons and daughters are wearing, ain't Shaman. And as the Rishonim explain, all sides agree that we don't want to bring little children to court to get them their clothing evaluated. So therefore, their weekday clothing is not evaluated. As Taisa says, their Shabbos dika begadim and the Yom Tov dika begadim, which we could take without them. They're not wearing it. That we take to court to evaluate. And says the Gemara, Amar Papa. Sometimes something worn by one of the brothers is also not evaluated. The oldest brother, because it's to the advantage that of the entire family that the older brother wear a Seville rose suit. He should look very, very put together because he represents their interests. The nichalu, the lishtamun milei. It's good for the whole family that his words should be respected when doing business for the entire estate. V'amar Ula Amar Rabbi Lazar. Another dictum of Ula in the name of Rabbi Lazar. I told you this is going to be a potpourri of lessons. Ula in the name of Rabbi Lazar. Excuse me. V'amar Ula Amar Rabbi Lazar. Shaimer shemasa l'shaimer pater. Well, here's an interesting thing. What happens over here is, I gave Mark an ox to guard. And Mark, without my permission, gave it to Rich. Now, you're not allowed to do that, Mark. I gave it to you to watch, I wanted a Bela Kinwood Shomer, right? And he gave it to Rich, whose hand is in a sling, mind you, right? So, V'amar Ula Amar Rabbi Lazar, Shomer shemasul l'shainer potter. And something happens, Mark is off the hook. Now, says the Gemara, V'loi mi boi shomer chinam shemasul l'shainer sachem. And it's not, that's for sure, where Mark, he's a responsible fellow. He upped the ante. And I gave it to him, and I didn't pay him for it. And he said, Rich, look, I got to work nights. He has some kind of an excuse sometimes. I got to work nights. I'll pay you to watch Rabbi Rice's show. So then for sure I can't have a taina. Because he upped the ante. He made it a better protection. Mark, I was paying. And he gave it to Rich and he said, do me a favor. So even then, he dumbed down the protection. Nami Potter. Why? Shari Muscle Bendas. Because, Rich is a sentient human being, right? He's been known to be called that, right? And therefore, he shouldn't have done it, but you can't say he was negligent. Rava says the entirely different spin. Mamish, entirely different spin. As soon as Mark gave it to Rich, he's responsible. No matter what happens, you have no right. I entrusted you. You have no right to give it to anybody else. Is no question where he downgraded it, where I was paying him, and he asked Rich to do him a favor. Even if he upgraded it, I was asking him for a freebie, and he paid Rich, still chayiv. You know why? Because if something happens by Rich, he's going to have to swear. And I could say to Mark, your shvu I trust. I don't trust Rich's shvu. Says the Gemara, Da'amalei at mehemnisli b'shvua. I trust your oath. Hi, lo mehemnisli b'shvua. So you had no right. I decide who I want to trust. And I hope you're not bored of Ulas in the name of Rabbi Lazar, but here we got another one. I know you're not bored of Mark and all the shenanigans. Mark, you got to find out where Marshall is. We don't hear him. I don't know why. V'amar Ula Amar Rabbi Lazar, Hilchas Hagoyvin Min Ha'avodim. The halacha is that you could collect from slaves. That means, the pashtus, what it means is that if Mark owes me money, I could collect from his, if he doesn't have what to pay, I could collect from his servants. Amalei Rav Nachman L'ula Amar Rabbi Lazar Afilu Miyasmei. If let's say Chatzkel owes me money, and Chatzkel dies, I could collect even from his orphans. Now that would be a chiddush, because you could only collect from orphans from real estate. So does that mean that Avda Kimikarkoi, that the servants are like real estate? So he says, Loi minei. No, only directly from Chatzkel. Could only collect from Chatzkel. From the orphans, no, because it's not real estate. So the Gemara says, what's the chiddush that you could collect from the Chatzkel? Minei afilu miglima dal kaspe. That could be even from the jacket on his shoulder. That's no chiddush. Here's the case. Mark owes me money, and I was very careful because I don't want any hanky-panky over here. So I know that Mark has a servant, Tony, and I tell Mark, I want you to make Tony an apoteki. Apoteki means apotehekai. I want you to designate it specifically for the payment of the loan. So says the Gemara, he made his servant Tony an apoteki designated for the loan. And then Mark, he's a wheeler dealer. He sells Tony to Shalom. Shalom was looking for a slave, with all his Woodlake and Florida and fairways. He can't even remember where he lives. So he needs to have, a good servant, right? So says the Gemara, and Kidarava. The Amarava asa avdoi apoitiki. If Mark made his slave, designating it as payment for the loan, and he sold it to Shalom, I could take it away from Shalom. Now Shalom is hopping up and down like a meshugana. He says, look, I could do a title search on land, but a title search on an Eved? Shoro apoitiki. But if Mark owed me money and he designated his ox as an apoitiki for the payment of the loan, and he sold the ox to Shalom, then I can't take it away from Shalom. And the chiddush over here is that an apotiki on an Eved has a koil. And therefore Shalom should have known about it. An apotiki on a shor doesn't have a koil. My time, is like kola. An apotiki on an Eved has a koil, but less like kola. And it does, and on a shor it doesn't have a koil. Says the Gemara, the Basar Denafik, after Rav Nachman left, Amalu Ula, so Ula said, Hachi Amar Rebbe Lazar, Afilu Miyasme. Really, you didn't have to come on to the discussion of a apoitiki. It's talking about where Chatzkel owed me the money, and Chatzkel died, and when it says that I could collect from the orphans, it's Afilu Miyasme, because he holds, it's the opinion of Ula in the name of Rebbe Lazar, that an Eved is like Karka, so you could take it away from the Yasme, Afilu Miyasme. Amar Rav Nachman, so Rav Nachman commented, Ishtamitin Ula. Ula was careful not to say that in my presence, because he knows that I hold that an Eved has a din like metaltalin, and therefore you can't collect it from an orphan, and therefore I had to learn the case is talking about an apotiki. Okay, Rabbi said this was, one of the more easier blot. No, this kind of flowed, with Mark's help. We did the Mishnah Yomis, so now we're going to do the Chok.